Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I am super excited. I have an incredible guest for you on my channel. Welcome, Miss Reverend Celeste.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I cannot contain my excitement today. So, welcome to Yogaphora Conversations. I'm your host, Andrea Spadafora, nationally certified and licensed massage therapist in the state of Missouri. I'm also a RYT 200 yoga instructor and owner of Yogaphora LLC, located here in Brentwood, at the CIBC Place building within Flex Time Fitness. Today, I have the joy of sitting with a remarkable spiritual leader, thinker, author, and creative force. Reverend Celeste has dedicated her life to awakening consciousness through the science of mind philosophy, through ministry, teaching, writing, artistic expression, and through her deep commitment to healing and transformation. Her work embodies the timeless truths that God is the one living spirit expressing through all creation, that each of us is an individualized expression of that spirit with S capital, and that kingdom of heaven is ultimately a state of consciousness within. She's a minister, a mystic, a poet, a dramatist, a teacher, and a lifelong student of the heart. Her voices reached people across the country through her sermons, her books, her podcasts, her outreach ministries, and her commitment to bring light wherever she goes. Today, we explore the inner landscape of healing, intuition, creativity, spiritual psychology, and the liberation that comes through remembering who we truly are. Reverend Celeste, thank you so much for being here. It is an honor to share the space with you.
My pleasure.
So let's get started I have a few questions just about your early roots, your journey, your personal journey. So first of all, where were you born? Where are you originally from?
Chicago, Illinois.
Chicago, Illinois. So not too far from where we are here.
Right.
And what early experiences awakened your sense of spirituality or connection to something greater?
I'd have to say when I was growing up, I had a sense that there was something that I was in conversation with and didn't necessarily know that I should trust it, except for when, the nuns were telling me something, but my inner spirit was saying, that's not true. And so then I began to trust it more than I was, the people with religious credentials and other kinds of
So what was your
influence.
first religious education, if I may ask?
I was baptized Catholic. Went to Catholic school, did Holy Communion, confirmation, all of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm familiar because I'm from Italy. We don't have any choice. You're either Catholic or you're Catholic. So
Right. But after that, after I went to college and kind of like had a little bit of separation from, kind of seeing, frankly, through professional ways that, I was assigned to the archdiocese and that they weren't following the rules, but they had trained me to follow the rules. So, I got more open to other faiths and religions. So then I explored the Baptist religion and AME. And one day I, took up one of my friends on the invitation to go to Agape, and then everything changed after that.
I would love to learn more about Agape. So when did you first recognize that you were called to ministry or spiritual teaching?
I think it was when I went to Agape and I was studying with Reverend Michael Beckwith. And, I started saying things that I didn't know I knew. And I started having these spiritual awakenings that were taking over, that I wasn't directing. It was using me. And so I decided, well, it was definitely more powerful than me, and I should pay more attention to it than what I had thought.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So tell me about how did your studies at Agape International Spiritual Center shaped your understanding of consciousness and your spiritual practice?
I think once they introduced me to spiritual principles that were applicable to any kind of religion and beyond, that I just started consuming it, and it started consuming me. And then, I let love or God lead, and just been following since, trusting that.
Did you feel that in this kind of framework or philosophy there is, I'm sorry, using the present tense, less dogma, less guilt, less rules? It's more like following your heart.
Yeah, it wasn't dogma at all. It was something that was intrinsic and that was absolutely something I could rely on because it was coming from within me, not outside of me.
Wonderful. I would love to explore deep into this. This is exactly what I would love to dig deeper. So, but let's continue with some about your inner calling. So, what did becoming a licensed practitioner teach you about the power of the mind?
Well, again, I'm going to go back to spirit guiding. And once I began to understand the qualities of God were really what I needed to rely on, and also point other people to who were coming to me for spiritual support, because then I could tune in to the God in me to speak to the God in them, and to be able to, speak more of what God knows rather than what I could imagine or guess at or, conjecture. So it was really more of a heart to heart, spirit to spirit connection. And so I trust that more than, anything I might read or any kind of instructions I might follow otherwise. Yeah.
How did your upbringing or cultural environment influenced your path towards spiritual leadership?
I think it was because of Michael Beckwith, because they are committed to co-creating spiritual leaders and not spiritual followers.
This association from your family values and belief, did they create some turmoil at the time?
Not really. I mean, I don't.
Were they supportive?
Yeah, I think that, it was interesting the first time I took my mother to Agape, because, Reverend Michael would say, "Do you understand what I'm saying?" And she would say, "No." And I was like, "Okay, you're embarrassing me." So, but over time, once I introduced her, I started a church in Chicago, and then she was, taking classes with me. Over time, she's like starting to throw things back at me that I had taught her. So I'm like, okay, this is backfiring, but still, principle is always correct.
And Agape is in Chicago, right?
No, Agape is in Los Angeles.
So you have to travel to Los Angeles.
Well, I lived in Los Angeles for like 25 years.
I see.
Like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long did you spend in Chicago? Just the first early years?
Yeah. I went to school in Texas, and then I transferred and went to school in Europe. I was based.
Where in Europe?
I was based in Italy.
Mamma mia!
I thought I told you that before.
Surprise! Yes.
Yeah, I was based in Italy, and then when I came back to the States, I finished at USC, which was in Los Angeles. And I was there from '77 to 2006 when I graduated from ministerial school.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
What city of Italy do you remember?
Roma.
Roma. Of course. Of course. La capitale, the capital. When you look back now, what threads or patterns do you see that were guiding you all along? Today is 2025. You're, leading the ministry at CSL, a Center for Spiritual Leading in Creve Coeur. Yeah,
I think it's just what I said. I think just listening. Like I didn't know. I didn't know what was writing. I thought I was writing, and then I discovered that it was Spirit who was writing by means of me. And as I began to understand that more, I trusted it more. And I don't lean on my own understanding, but that higher guide. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't know there was actually a master's degree in consciousness studies. So how did that deepen or refine your worldview?
Well, a master's in consciousness studies is what happens when you go through ministerial school. It just closed. It was open for the longest, and Michael went through the program. I went through the program. And so it's basically a number of disciplines: science, psychology, philosophy, and theology, just to get us to understand what the basics are to religious science, and to really be able to have a foundation, where you could really, be supported in your ministry. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. So it was something that you can apply for. Well, you said you just closed, right?
Yeah, well,
It's
Holmes
inaccessible.
Institute. Yeah, Holmes Institute just closed like a year ago, and but at the time it was based at Agape. It had started when Ernest Holmes started it. It was on 6th Street in Los Angeles, but there's different branches across the country.
Right.
There's Florida, Colorado, different places where the School of Ministry is still taught. But Holmes Institute is no more. Yeah, yeah.
See, I would love for people who is listening for the first time, getting a little deeper understanding, or just like some basic tools that people can apply right away when it comes to the science of mind, and what consciousness actually means. What is the relationship between consciousness and God? All these labels that could be a little nebulous, a little bit obscure to many. So I would love to bring some clarity to this. So for someone listening who is new to science of mind, how would you describe this philosophy in simple, heartfelt terms?
It just basically comes back to the awareness of the presence. And, there's natural laws, spiritual laws, just like there's, gravity is a law.
Yes.
Aerodynamics is a law, buoyancy is a law. It's just that natural to life, and so when you trust in spiritual law, you'll see how cause and effect work. What goes around comes around. What you think about, you bring about. And so when you realize that you have inner power more than you have outer power, then you start choosing what inner power you want to tune into, that which is real, or that which is, kind of conniving and a little less integrous. So, yeah.
How do you personally experience God as the one living spirit expressing through all creation? I have one gentle definition that might be helpful, and that is, I just read it, recently. God is not a he, is not human, or it's not a statue, nor any religion. God is the electromagnetic pulse of energy that gives life and lives within all living things.
Yeah.
So, how do you personally experience God in the day-to-day?
Well, like I say, it's always different. It's like an adventure. It could be, by compassion, having compassion for another person. When I pray for someone, when I get a sense of the divine directing me, I go to it and it responds to me. I don't assume that I know anything in my human mind more than intelligence itself knows.
Yes.
And so I trust it.
You trust it.
Yes.
Of course. One of my mentors, which you may be familiar with, Dr. David Hawkins, who was the author of Power versus Force. He says he was known for his map of consciousness, for the delineation of the human emotions from the lowest vibrations to the highest vibrations of love and unconditional love. And he talks about how power just is, just like you mentioned, gravity. Gravity just stands there and does nothing, right? Instead, when things are motivated by force, force consumes energy, moves from location to location, and it's essentially it leads to exhausting itself. Think about all the people that operated during mankind with leading with force, right? So, speaking of power, two questions. What does it mean to you that each person is an individualized expression of God, and how science of mind help people understand this creative power, or their own creative power, if we're all an individualized unit of consciousness?
I think it's interesting because it really does have to do with their relationship to that power. Because if they're thinking that they're, they're coming from their personality, then
Mhm.
they're really not connected to their power. They're connected to their ego. And so willing things to happen is like using that force, as opposed to tuning into the real power, which guides and directs and is a supportive, affirming energy and not a combative one. And so it doesn't seek to make oneself puffed up better than somebody else as much as it does meeting people, guiding us to meet people where they are. And so it doesn't require that somebody be something because we will it to be, but we get to find out how that person can be a beneficial presence to us simultaneously, and then we might find a way to be a beneficial presence to them. Yeah.
Great answer. How do predictable spiritual laws shape our daily experience? Right. How do you use this power? How do you use in your day-to-day? How can you, put it into day-to-day fruition?
I turn within. I take a deep breath. And I often close my eyes so that I'm not distracted by the outer things, and seek that the highest possible idea, the highest possible energy. Doing that, I don't have to rely on my ego or my intellect, but relying on that which is infinite and the realest thing about me. So it's just better for me to do that because I can make up anything and try to convince somebody else that it's true. But what's true is true and what's false is false.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. And like you said, you can only meet people where they're at, including ourselves sometimes.
Yes.
We all have our flaws and limitations and vulnerabilities. Dr. Hawkins says that, this consciousness is beyond time and place, It has no beginning and no ending. So it is also impossible to prove the existence of God, because that which is infinite is beyond human comprehensions. We can only conceptualize, but we cannot scientifically prove it. That is one of the main challenges. Dr. Hawkins says that wanting to prove something is in the realm of reason, right? He calls it the 400 level, right? The science level, where you can dissect and touch, smell, and see and feel everything. Just like when you go to a hospital, for example, they will dissect your body based upon whatever organs they are looking at. But there is also illness that has been induced by mismanaging your emotions and your relationship with others. I believe that one of my holistic approaches to healing has to do with taking a look at your stressors, your lifestyle, your relationships, and how you cope with all those stressors in the world. So let me ask you, what does the kingdom of heaven is within mean to you at a practical level?
At a practical level, it's a place where I can go that I'm safe. At a practical level, it's a place where I can know that I'll get to truth, that'll take me away from ego and wanting to exert myself or exert power over somebody else. It's the place where I can relax and let it support me.
Yes.
And it's the most effortless thing because it doesn't require pushing. It just requires tuning in and accepting what I hear.
Yes. As you know, my business is called Yogaphora because I'm an avid yoga practitioner, and I also teach it. And in the yoga world, the yoga mat or the yoga studio is considered technically one of the safe places where you can actually tune in, align, and balance those forces, wanting to push, wanting to pull away, or you get to know your body at a much deeper level. You get to know some muscles you didn't know you had. But also there is also an energetical balance that people get to learn in yoga, and I highly encourage you to. I'm sure that most of the consciousness, the spiritual seekers, have had some kind of experience with the practice of yoga.
Yes.
Yoga technically means union, right?
Mhm.
When you see union, when you see oneness, there is no more dichotomies. There is no more male and female, black and white, rich or poor, or and all this oppositional forces. Um, um, how do you integrate mystical insight with grounded everyday living?
It's just the language, I think.
Hmm.
You know, my podcast is called Mystic Magic.
Yes.
And so I always ask the question, can you think of a mystical moment that changed your life? Because I know everybody has one.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me to, come from that place, it's because I consider myself a mystic,
Mm-hmm.
simply because I've said things that I had no knowledge of knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And, when it first happened, it kind of tripped me out. But then over the years, I've come to accept it.
Uh-huh.
And so that's just that part of me that I go to surrender.
For those who don't know what the word mystic means, can you explain?
It's just a union with God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you become a vessel, you listen, and yeah, I can see it when I come to your sermons at CSL. I am just like being bathed by your beautiful, inspiring words. So
thank you. Good.
how can people? Let's give some advice for people who are listening. So how can people cultivate a deeper relationship with their own divine nature?
I think first, as a yoga person, you know this, with the breath.
Yes.
Breathing so that you can relax from the outer, because that fire that is within is breathing us, and it's that energy that we can rely on to bring us to our center, and less about the outer. And so coming to that center, we're getting more into alignment with the divine within us. And so that's the mystic part, because that's the divine that lives in all of us, that we get to awaken to. And then when we're speaking to each other heart to heart is the place that we come from. Everything else is just made up stuff.
Interesting. In fact, my next question was, what misconceptions do people often have about new thought teachings, right? What is fake out there? What is inauthentic?
There are people who, try to sell things that are, more focused on the outer. It's not that, outer things cannot work. It's just that they're not the only means by which they can work. Like, you can use your energy to, like, energize your spiritual energy, to energize a crystal, and the crystal has its own power, but it has more power when you align it with your divine energy.
Yes.
And so if you think that it mainly stays in this inanimate object, and that you need to get that, got to covet that in order to have real power, then you're mistaken, because the power is already within you.
Right. Amen.
Yeah.
And so it is. That's so true. That is so true. I can experience that anytime I'm on my yoga mat. I don't need anything else. It's just me, the body, the mat, and finding stillness, finding the breath, closing the eyes, zoning out from the busyness of the outer world. So, in terms of healing, emotional growth, and inner freedom, how do you define inner healing?
Wow. And part of that has to be on your own, but then there's also something to having the right teacher to guide you. Because not a teacher who's about you being impressed with them and putting them on a pedestal, but a teacher who's referring you back to your authentic self, to your spirit within you. And so just really being able to rely on learning the principles and the practices that can bring you back to your source, your substance. Your substance is not your body, it's not your mind. Your substance is your spirit. And so when people come to churches or spiritual organizations, or whatever you want to call them, centers,
Yes.
they're generally looking for something outside of themselves to bring them back to their center.
Mhm.
And so that's fine as long as it's not a codependent situation, and that you can learn the tools to find your way back to your spirit and not necessarily be codependent on a leader or a master or some kind of person who wants to make you codependent with them so that you can contribute to their agenda or their wealth,
Yes.
but to really trust that when someone leads you to your higher self, that's valuable, and that you want to stay on that path.
Let me ask you this. What emotional wounds do you see most commonly in the people you serve? Like, we all have, some level of trauma. Everybody's experienced some level of trauma. Some people have their own fears, right?
Mhm.
The ultimate fear, according to my doctor Hawkins, is the fear of death. Once you transcend the fear of death, most of our other fears typically collapse. Right. So tell me about, what emotional wounds do you see most common in the people you serve?
Oh, the question was emotional.
Emotional wounds.
Wounds.
Yes.
Well, I think everybody's experienced some form of hurt.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's what happens after that matters. Sometimes people choose to hurt other people so that they don't get hurt, as a combative way to keep themselves what they think is keeping themselves safe. But mostly it's about kind of healing those places where you've been wounded. And if you can get into a spiritual practice and understanding, whether it's through reading or through, meditating or chanting or whatever your practice is, to get you in alignment with the spirit within you so that you're not trying to go out there with a shield, because everything that you do to protect yourself is going against your spirit. Surrendering brings you into your spirit, and fighting pushes you against spirit.
Well said. There is a lot of power in the word surrender, by the way. Dr. Hawkins wrote a whole book called Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender, which I highly recommend. But now, in fact, you mentioned, when somebody hurts you, the immediate reaction is to want to hurt back, right? To react by hurting back, by sending a spear back at whatever they did to you. And it's a downward spiral that brings nothing but more hurt. Right?
Yeah.
So there is, in spirituality, we contemplate a lot the word forgiveness. So what is the relationship between forgiveness and liberation, right? So how do you experience, how can you actually forgive somebody that, truly you think hurt you, and embody forgiveness even toward yourself? So tell me your experience with, counseling people about those two things, forgiveness and liberation.
Well, forgiveness is liberation. And it doesn't start with forgiveness, it starts with liberation. I mean, it starts with understanding that you have no separation from God. And if you have no separation from God, then you have no separation from anything.
Right.
And for us to be able to make up our minds that because someone was cruel to us, that we need to, close our hearts, which is the opposite of God, because God is open heart. And so when you go into that, what you're doing is helping yourself be conquered by your own fears. And so God has nothing to do with fear. They may use the word fear God, but what they mean is to revere God, and they got lost in the translation. And so what happens when you are perceiving that there's something outside of God or something outside of you, then you think that you are unsafe. But if you go to the essence of who you are within and trust that, then you begin to realize that there are no enemies and that there's only one.
So in this sense, do you think that because we're all children of the same entity, we're all mirroring each other at any moment in time? We're mirroring each other.
Oftentimes we are,
Mhm.
and sometimes we're using other people to fight our battles with ourselves.
Yes, yes,
You know,
yes.
and
To see and
so
validate ourselves. Yes.
it's convenient for people to focus on other rather than self.
Hmm.
But it doesn't help you move forward in your healing process or your wholeness, embracing your wholeness.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the relationship between body and mind. In
Mm.
my yoga practice, for example, I often say that the body is simply the support system for the mind and the spirit, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everything starts in the form of a wave, in the form of a frequency, in the form of in the non-physical, and we manifest it through in this physical form called body. So, how does the mind participate in healing the body or emotions? Have you ever seen, in your experience, miracles performed on the body just by operating on the mind alone or emotions alone?
No.
No. Okay. Good. Okay.
I thought you were going to ask something totally different. Yeah.
No. My question is about how does the mind participate in healing the body?
I say when the mind, you know, trusts the breath,
Mm-hmm.
because the breath is the spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and the breath is within the body
Mm-hmm.
for this dimension, but it's also that which frees us. And you know this as a yoga teacher
Mm-hmm.
because the breath makes everything possible. You know,
Yes.
that pose I'm trying to get to, I'm not going to get to it unless I'm breathing through the process.
Correct.
And the breath is the spirit.
Yes.
And so the breath is that connection with God. I mean, we're in a casket if we're not breathing.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
and it's the breath that keeps us alive, and it's the breath that we have to rely on to move through our challenges, to get the kinks out, and
Right.
and there's
Absolutely.
only one path, and that's to God. Yeah.
I agree. In yoga, I often, remind myself and remind the people around me that breath is the fuel that helps you sustain your practice.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also the definition of prana or chi in the more Eastern philosophies, but they all have the common denominators.
Right.
It is the bridge between the mind and the body is the breath.
Yeah.
Yes. How do you guide people who feel disconnected from source or they feel they're unworthy of love?
How do I what?
Guide them. How do you guide them?
Oh.
I'm sure people come to you and that's what they want to hear, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the circumstance. I mean, when people come, they're feeling some kind of helplessness, and generally, it's reminding them of the power that's within them. Sometimes we get stuff in the prayer box, and we send texts to people that are prayers, or we send them emails or whatever. But it always has to do with reminding them that their power is already within them. And even if they're feeling it for another loved one, that they participate in their own healing so that they can be able to see them differently.
Mm-hmm.
Because at any point when I am adverse to someone, I have to first go to my source and understand where we share the same thing.
Yes.
Where we share the same life energy.
Yes.
And coming from that place is very neutralizing because they don't get to be the enemy. They get to be my ally in my growth. They get to be the initiator or the impulse that leads me to a greater understanding that I wasn't prepared to see or willing to see. And so they may be appearing to be an enemy, but they may be my guide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. I have a thought-provoking question for you. Are you familiar with the Christian Scientist framework?
Yeah.
And in some of in the way that some practitioners advise is that you can heal your body from illness through prayer alone, right? That's the body is it's essentially non-physical primarily. I'm sure you've heard of the what's the name of the revisitation of the Bible by Mary Baker Eddy in the mid 1800s. So what do you think? You think that you can pray your way out of cancer, you can pray your way out of trauma, you can pray your way out of some kind of physical or body injury, or what's been your experience? Have you ever had some personal, or you've seen some healings happening on the body through prayer, or having somebody else pray for you?
Yeah, I mean, this is how New Thought started. I mean, it started with healing. Um, um, Now, I look at Christian Scientist people in a different way because sometimes there's a rigidity there that it's hard for me to see where they're in surrender. But kind of bound to a word on a page. Whereas my experience is more fluid. I rely on my spirit. When people ask me to pray for them,
Yes.
I don't rely on my mind. I rely on the spirit within me to guide me where I can connect with the spirit in them so that they can let go of an old belief that is keeping them captive and enslaved to a dis-ease. And so for that, it's more than just words. It's really just being a connector to their power, their spiritual power. Yeah.
I see. Well, thank you so much. This is very helpful. Let's talk about happiness, joy, and living from the heart. Number one is, most when you go to most churches or most congregations, you see this big banner that says "God is love," right? I'm sure that it's also true for you as at the Center of Spiritual Living, and it's the same at the Christian Scientists, places or venues. What blocks people from experiencing joy even when they desire it?
Fear.
Fear. Okay.
Yeah.
So you think that fear is the absence of love?
It is.
It is.
I mean, love can never really be absent, but if we think it is, that's enough. That keeps us in prison. It keeps us bound. And, perfect love casts out all fear. I believe that to be true. And if you're not willing to access something other than fear because of an addiction to fear, because that's the way your operating system has been working, it's not really been working for you, but you're convinced that that's working for you because somehow fear keeps you safe. It's like a total upside down way of looking at life. I think letting go of fear is required by love, and that they can't coexist.
Yes. In fact, Dr. Hawkins says that love is what you ultimately become once the obstacles to it have been removed. Right? So, including fear, right? Including fear. Fear is what he defines as, one of the clouds in the sky. And when the clouds are removed, the sun shines forth.
Yeah, clarity.
Clarity, yes, yes. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. So for you, what does living from the heart look like in everyday life? I'm sure you have a busy life. You have people coming in and out of your office, and everybody's got their own ego that they tend to want to defend, right? I'm sure you have your own ego sometimes. So how do you dissolve all of that, and how does living from the heart look like for you?
Going back to the breath.
Going back to the breath. Okay, so you kind of retreat. You retreat and you meditate. You do meditation.
Yeah, it's like sometimes I even say audibly, "Let me breathe," because there's so much fear in the world. Even watching interviews sometimes, and I think about the politics of today.
Yes.
I have to tell myself to breathe. I have to tell myself not to get bound up. But the way that God has led my life, You know, like the other day, I was getting caught up in how all of these people have like manufactured how to like totally overthrow the government financially and otherwise. And it was just like, wait a minute. Somebody sent me a text, are you coming? And I'm supposed to be helping to facilitate this process that we do every month that is about being pulled by the vision and not being pushed by pain. And so because I set myself up to be a minister, I am my own way of getting myself out of that separation and out of that fear. And that's why you keep doing the practice. It's selfish, but it's healthy and it helps other people. And because I'm in service as a priority, then I can't really help them without helping myself.
That's true. Amen. 100%. Self-love. In yoga, I often say that in this 1 hour of yoga, nobody can ever love you more than you love yourself. So how do our thoughts either support or sabotage our sense of happiness?
Oof. Thoughts can be very dangerous.
Right.
Like I was saying a minute ago, like when you perceive that there's some other power other than love, then it can really, it can tense you up and it really agitate you.
Oh yeah.
And you in some way make yourself sick. I mean, because you're not in alignment with your wholeness. You're in alignment with separation, which is a disconnect from everything that is pro-life. Right. And so you almost become anti-life to yourself in the process of getting caught up in some drama that has nothing to do with love.
Right.
Yeah.
You can see it, when somebody is living a living life through the lens of fear. You can actually see them in their posture. You can see it, hunched back. You can see in massage, we can see it in the tightness of the hips. In yoga, we often say that all emotions eventually go to die in the hips. The hips are the huge reservoir of emotional tension, right? Do you zone out from the news? Do you watch the news in the morning?
I don't watch the news every day. I will get information when I need to get it, whether it's through online or whether it's through television. Mostly I try to tune in to people who are more in alignment with my mindset.
Yes.
So that I'm like not upsetting myself. And even the interview I was watching, was a spiritual person was, having a conversation, because it was Marianne having a conversation. And, you have to have a certain level
of Marianne Williamson?
Yeah. Okay. And so you have to have a certain level of intelligence in order to be going into these conversations and having knowledge too, but at the same time be able to be balanced and supported by something greater than the information, because information can be used to build you up or tear you down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the way that Dr. Hawkins, my mentor, really brilliantly defined the levels of consciousness, everything that is below the level of 200, which is the demarcation line between force and power. So every piece of news that immediately makes your body go weak, when information is coming from a place of fear, anger, resentment, even pride sometimes, even pride is inherently destructive to life itself. But everything that is above 200, so you step into number one, courage, going up to neutrality, acceptance, tolerance, joy, love, and unconditional love, makes your body go strong, and you immediately tune in. Your body is attracted, your mind is attracted to those kind of news, to those kind of conversations. So that, I think there's a correlation between what you said, when listening to Marianne Williamson immediately, it's something that resonates well with you, right?
Well, in that conversation, she was actually talking with someone who had written a book about how, the wealthy people are like creating this drama in our lives. And, it wasn't necessarily from a spiritual point of view, but at the same time, someone on my phone was calling me to be in a spiritual conversation when I was getting worked up by listening to, how greed is seemingly tearing down our systems as we know them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to ask you something a little more personal. So, in your personal experience, have you ever experienced moments of unmistakable inner guidance? Can you give me some anecdotes, some happenings in your life where it was absolutely clear?
I live for those moments. I there are so many to choose from. I guess I've mentioned a few just now, but you know, sometimes when I feel myself getting tense and getting caught up into some negative energy,
Mm-hmm.
it could be the breath. It could be
Mm-hmm.
breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And really, because I can physically feel it when it starts to happen, that's got to be my first move is to breathe.
Right, but I'm talking about some examples where in your past, the life that you've lived, you felt in certain moments, either emotionally broken, financially broken, left out, some situations, some practical situations where the presence was there for you unmistakably. Can you name one?
Just really every day.
Every day. Okay.
I'll say I'll use yesterday. When I encounter people who are in separation, who try to like make me wrong for having a certain point of view, I have to either let go because they're not going to be receptive to what I'm saying. And then I have to go and breathe on my own and release it because I don't want that energy to be held in my body or my mind. And so it really is about, catch and release. I mean, it's like when you you don't even know that you're fishing for the answer, and it comes in a way that you didn't want it to come, but it still gives you an opportunity to release.
And rather than just breathing, do you also find it helpful to have somebody else work on you? Do you have Reiki practitioners, people that kind of wash away or move away the bad frequency, the bad vibration? Do you find that helpful?
Not enough. I don't go to massage therapists enough. I don't go to Reiki therapists enough.
I could CSL, really, you have several Reiki practitioners, right?
Yeah, I don't go to the practitioners because I'm kind of like their person.
Sure.
But people have given me referrals to, our office manager is a massage therapist, and I was like, I got to see somebody. And she's like, here, go see her. And it's like, I can get referrals from people at church, but I'm not going to necessarily deal with that because they may be part of that energy that I'm trying to get rid of. Right?
Interesting.
And so, because people will basically strike out at whoever's closest to them, and so you have
explain
to
that. I'm sorry. What does it mean?
Whatever people are going through energetically, if they need to get rid of it, sometimes it ends up to be like taking it out on you.
Yeah. So there's just counter transference.
Just to get it away out of them. And it's like, no, I'm gonna pray for you, and then I'm gonna go away and trust that you continue that healing process.
Sure.
But it's like a separation of church and state, if you will. It's like, okay, this is not, where I want to, process everything. I need to go outside of this space because this is a space where I'm a reference point, but I need to be not attached to anybody else's judgment about me. So I need to go elsewhere where I can feel safe without judgment because I'm neutral. I'm not having a whole bunch of expectations about what I should be or what I can be. But, I'm here to release what I don't need.
Mhm.
And you don't know that much about me at 1st.
Mhm.
And if you do know something about me, I'm already trusting that it's safe here and that you don't necessarily have a connection to these other people who are helping to create the drama in my life. You know?
Yes. But I mean, you can have a therapeutic long-term relationship with somebody you trust, somebody that you've met, and you feel inspired, you feel aligned with that person.
Absolutely.
A lot of people have in America, especially, everybody's got their own counselor or therapist, right? They just feel a good release by just venting out.
Yeah.
It's called talk therapy. I'm sure you've heard that. But yeah, so everything you need is within you. Nobody can actually cure you but you. Even myself in my massage therapy practice, I'm nothing but a facilitator. But if I am in the therapy room and I'm talking about my own drama, I simply transfer my negative vibes onto the person. It's called a transference. Yeah, and I've heard bad stories of people that going into a massage and feeling worse because there was a mismatch of energy and vibration that were not aligned. And essentially, even though people start with good intention, with good genuine intentions to just like talk about the more or less, talking about their personal stories, but in the end, they don't feel the release. They don't feel healed, or they don't get the same therapeutic effect that they are seeking. Now, I want to ask you, what tends to catalyze spiritual awakenings in people? I heard many times that some people need to hit bottom first. Some people have to experience near-death experiences to awaken, right? It may be through, becoming alcoholics or addicted to drugs. I'm sure you've had experiences with people coming to your congregation as a way to dissipate, or at least to alleviate the effects of their addictions, right? So in your experience, what are those catalyzers? What catalyzes spiritual awakenings in people?
Well, I mean, it's generally three things. One is money, one is health.
Yes.
And the other is relationship.
Yes.
And so it's really based on our belief systems, and we're either aligning with people who have the same belief systems as us, or we're encountering people who have different belief systems from us that can create conflict or can be a healing presence. We're dealing with that whole thing around lack when we're dealing with money. And so we need to be, reminded of what our source is. And so those are the three things mainly that people are seeking to grow from. And hitting that wall may be the best thing to happen to them before they can be freed up to a greater truth.
Yes. I often say that when you do private investigations, you either follow the money or follow the family. That's going to be the greatest indicators of one person's life. But I'm sure you've heard of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and the 12 Steps, and the Course of Miracles, which is one of the textbooks that are recommended within the program. What do you think about that? What do you think about the 12 Steps? Surrender to a higher power that loves you, and what are the challenges for people that are still in denial phase? They still think, I don't have a problem, I don't need to go to AA.
I think AA is a good resource, and it works for a lot of people. Sometimes it becomes an addiction, though, for people to just kind of stay there and not move past there. But I still know that it's worked for people for years, and that it's helped them stay grounded in some way. And they may, you may be sitting there talking to them, and they say, "Oh, I got to go to a meeting." And so there's a little bit of still addiction stuff going on there. But I think that everything having to do with A Course in Miracles is 100% solid.
Yes.
I still will go to Course in Miracles lessons. I'll read it sometimes, but it's really good to be in community around A Course in Miracles because you can listen to other people moving through their struggles and have your own insights, not about them, but about yourself. And so just to have that background playing in the back is just another opportunity for us to access truth, maybe through the side door as opposed to straight on, and to recognize places where you have remained unhealed that you don't have to keep holding on to. Like I had fought with my brother for decades until I was like, finally I had this epiphany in the middle of this Course in Miracles conversation. And I might have been the teacher in that, and it's just like, you can make yourself available if your intention is to be free.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. See, what I noticed in some of your preaching style, it reminded me of great leaders like Barack Obama, and it also reminded me of some of my favorite yoga teacher mentors. Where I can recognize there is a good blend of strength, like the rock solid strength, and the softness of and the humility and the softness that can be in a flower, for example. So I love people that have it together, not in an arrogant way, but they're just aware. You can feel that in people. So what role does humility play in spiritual growth?
Humility is one of those things that people don't necessarily, I'll say, I don't like to admit to publicly, but that it's a private conversation. And it's not necessarily that somebody else can make you humble, but that you can find moments in interactions with someone else where you realize your own humility. I think that it's not something that you go around touting like I'm humble, but it's something that if you are willing to grow, that you will experience on a regular basis.
Right. Of course. I mean, it's obviously it's a quality that people will tell you if you're humble or not. It's more of a reflection or a feedback that you may get from your audience. Let's see. Now I don't know if have you ever heard of this shadow side of spirituality? It's called spiritual bypassing. And what it means is the tendency to use spiritual ideas or practices to avoid dealing with uncomfortable emotions, unresolved trauma, or real world responsibilities. So what is your perspective on spiritual bypassing?
It's annoying. It's annoying when I see people do it. I like to think that I don't do it. It may or may not be true. It's certainly not something I consciously do, because I don't think it's something that makes me credible by doing that, because you have to meet people where they are.
Correct. Yes.
And so if you act like it doesn't have importance, then how can you be a reliable source? Because if you don't recognize that this is a real struggle or a real pain or a real obstacle or impediment to their growth and to their happiness, then you're no earthly good, right? And so if you try to religious speak or spiritual speak to somebody about their issue, you're not really hearing them. You're just trying to take control and show that you have some level of what is the word, authority, that you know better than they do. What you really need to do is just direct them back to themselves.
Yes.
So that they can heal in their own process, and it'll be really authentic and more thorough than something somebody could do outside of them.
I see. I have another thought-provoking question for you right there after this good follow-up for this topic is most people around the world venerate what they call the avatars. Let's say Lord Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, right? In Buddhism. We also venerate popes and saints. And when you look at their lives, yes, they were enlightened individuals, people that arrive at at a greater level of unconditional love and started to teach from their point, from that point. But do you see them as people just like you and I? Like they're mortals, they're humans, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So how do you not compare yourself, but I mean, how do you walk around the earth like a light garment, as Saint Francis of Assisi used to say? And how do you walk the earth without feeling superior or inferior of anybody else?
Oh, well, I'll start with inferior.
Yes.
I don't feel inferior because I don't necessarily think anybody's inferior to me.
Correct.
I don't feel superior, but if somebody is coming to me for advice or guidance, I will give them my impression that it's for their highest good from a place that they can access. So I think that there's always a possibility of that. But when you started talking about that, I started thinking about, because for a while I would talk about the Pope.
Yeah.
And I would just, enjoy the humanity and the compassion.
Yes.
Because that to me is appealing, to be able to say, yes, I don't agree with what's happening in the world, but what I know is that, I can hold a vibration for something better. And no, I'm not going to act like everything is peachy keen when, this is challenging at the human level, and I'm still human as long as I'm on the earth.
Yes.
Right. And so I think that when I see somebody who has that kind of balance and care, especially when they have compassion, then I'm automatically connected to them, emotionally and spiritually.
See, the Pope, for example, the popes have always had an infinite amount of wealth. Of course, they live a very luxurious lifestyle if they want to, right? And whereas certain saints have dedicated their lives to poverty, like true authentic poverty. You think there is a correlation with that? Like how we all know, we're all as humans aware of our own mortality, right? We can only live 100 years at best. So is there something, because one of the questions that probably people have is going to a spiritual center to learn about the self. S with a capital S. Self with a capital S, right? Union with God, union with Source, union with. So if I am an individualized unit of consciousness, just like Pope Francis, just like Saint Francis of Assisi, Saint Clare of Assisi, all these people. So how do you walk the earth in communion and in unity with everybody else, without seeing, oh, you're the Pope, but you're still a human being, right? You are a spiritual leader. You are the leader of one congregation. How do you don't put people on pedestals? That's what I meant.
If you ever went to Catholic school, you already know that didn't last. Because like I said, when I was in second grade and they were telling me about sending, babies to purgatory, it's like, that's not the God that I know. Who are you people? Why are you like feeding me this nonsense? And when I know it's not true, and even like, later, like years later, when I was in college and I would come home for the summer and they, my family had friends in the city government and they would assign me to archdiocese to monitor these people. And they're just like asking me to look the other way. And I'm like, you were supposed to be the people who taught me about morality. What are you talking about? No, I'm reporting you, and so, people are people, whatever they have a title or title that says I should be better, if I can have that conversation with me, then, everybody else needs to have their conversation with themselves.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
How do you help people embody unity in a world that feels divided, right? You have so many polarities in this world. You have the political dividedness, and then the male versus the female, the masculine and the feminine. Oh, I am the man that wears the pants in the family. You remember those days? So what in 2025, in this modern day world where we are all globally interconnected through the internet, how do you help people embody unity?
I think people have to be willing to a certain extent. But there's a place where they say, I'll meet you there. And it doesn't have to do with morality as much as it has to do with the spirit that lives within everybody. Mm-hmm. If you can tap into that, then that doesn't require judgment, and it doesn't require somebody being wrong. It just requires, pointing people back to their higher self in whatever way that you can do it. And I don't expect to ever try to do it intellectually. I have to go within in order to find a place to meet them, and so I can only meet them from a place of beneficial intention and trust that they'll hear that. And if they don't, I can't be attached to what they do with that. I have to, know that I have done what I came to do and move on. Yeah.
I'm sure that, you have had some people coming to you for guidance, people who were maybe victims of domestic violence, people that were scared, people that were, or maybe they were angry, all these people coming from the fourth realm, right? So how do you reconnect them to the higher power, to love? How do you lead them from the world of fear into love?
It's an individual situation.
Do you think there is a process? There's something that some kind of process people can follow?
I mean, for me, it's like just trusting God and asking what it is. If I have any information about them, that becomes a place where I can meet them. If I have a similar experience that I can share, that becomes a place where I can meet them. If there's like you've been referring back to different people that you listen to, like
Dr. Hawkins.
David Hawkins.
Yes.
If there's a place that I get the hit that they will hear this, then I'll go there. And sometimes prayer does it, because what I do is I only listen to God and let that speak for me.
So, one of the challenges I face, for example, I am pretty sensitive and I feel for people who are homeless, who are helpless, who are, in a desperate situation where they really cannot help themselves. So what you do, you silently pray for them, even though there is nothing physical you can do about it.
If I can get close enough to them, I remember, I don't know how long ago it was, maybe a few weeks, like guy up there on the street, but I'm in the middle lane and I'm like, I can't get to him, but I didn't like go all the way around the block and come back. But, sometimes I give too much when I, don't leave enough for myself, but I don't feel comfortable leaving somebody stranded, I just do what I can.
Good.
Awesome. Yeah.
Let's talk about let's switch gears and talk about your creativity, writing and artistic expression, because, you also, creativity has also served you as a spiritual practice. So when did you first discover your love for poetry and dramatic writing?
Oh, poetry when I was a kid, it was just intrinsic. And dramatic writing, I don't know, when I was primary school, I said, I'm going to be an actress. And so, I think one of my first roles was playing the Virgin Mary. And then it was like, okay, us eighth graders had done something when the nuns were out of the room, and they found it in my desk, and this nun slapped me in my face as hard as she possibly could because I had played the Virgin Mary and I had done something wrong. And I'm like, wait a minute, how is that like Jesus? But but for me to go into dramatic writing was because I was just interested in acting, and because I was interested in acting, I wasn't necessarily finding the roles that I wanted. So I started writing, roles that would work for me so that I could hire myself. And I didn't do that all the time, but I also got into the writing because I had already written poetry, and the writing was part of the fabric of who I am. And so I would just continue to write scripts, and then I would direct them and produce them, and I would do short films, and so I would follow that.
What spiritual insights emerged through writing the Vine Work play or In Spirit, in Love?
In Spirit, in Love was interesting because I wrote a lot of that material while I was going through ministerial training. And I was just coming to my own insights. And then when I said, I think I want to do a book, I was like, well, I've already written all of these essays. Let me just use that. And, Divine Work Play was like, and I do this every 2 years, and it's time for another book now. It's like, I would look at the sermons that I've given, and then I would find a way to say, okay, here's the premise here, and here's the affirmation here, and it would give people a daily practice or a weekly practice, because it's 52 weeks of practice in the present, a weekly practice to, kind of follow what I found, and then they could try it if it worked for them.
Interesting. I would love to check that book out. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't wait to see it.
Well, it's in the bookstore. It's in
the bookstore. Okay, great. How do your theatrical roots influence your ministry? Because being a minister involves some public speaking, right? So you have to transcend the fear that you're not enough to be on the stage and talk to people and be an inspiring speaker, right? So.
Yeah, I think that was part of the overall plan. It wasn't my idea. I just kind of stumbled through and found my way. But yeah, I mean, I already know what it takes to get people's attention, and I already know, how to be an authentic person, because that's my preference.
Yes.
And so for
you
me,
immediately strike me as a very authentic person. Beautiful person. Beautiful inside and out.
Thank you. It takes too much energy to not be. And so it's just easier for me to come from where I am. And yeah, so I'm always amazed or appreciative that, people can gain something from me, and that, whether it's my journey on a personal spiritual path, or my journey on a human path, that helps to, stimulate something in them that makes them understand something about themselves better, something about their spiritual nature, and something about a way to move forward with more confidence and more support.
And what advice would you offer to someone whose creative gifts feel dormant, right? For example, I want to write a book. I want to be a writer, but I don't have any inspiration right now. I don't even know how to start.
Yeah.
So based on your experience, what advice would you offer?
I would just invite you to pay attention to your thoughts. If you journal, that's one way. If you pray, that's another way. If you journal and pray, that's an even greater way to insight, because you can find your way without having like an objective, and just being in the moment, and just being present with what is revealed to you, and being present with the challenge that you have before you, and being willing to surrender to a higher vibration other than the one you may be at, where you're judging yourself or judging other people, and just let yourself be freed up for a moment to be able to let God help you write it. Yeah.
Interesting. Do you have a system, you have a favorite time of the day, or maybe certain activities that all of a sudden you have this inspiring thought? Some people have them when they take a shower, or maybe while they're cooking, or while they're jogging, or power walking. Very.
Well, it's like I signed up for this Artist Way class, and I haven't gone to many, so I have to like go back and listen to all the recordings when I'm not there.
Uh-huh.
But really, it's just like continuing to write something, or find a prompt,
Mm-hmm.
a writing prompt to
Mm-hmm.
say, how do I feel about what's going on here, my family, in the world, in my life, whatever it is, just to get yourself opened up to be in touch with yourself, so that you can go from there to where you might want to go.
Great. Yeah, there are some writers clubs out there.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Anne and Claire, they're just starting one right now, a writers club, where they give the prompts.
Mm-hmm.
They offer some prompts, and then people will start writing whatever comes to their mind.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's talk about quickly what caused you to work with convalescent homes, children's hospitals, hospices, and prisons. Wow, even prisons.
Mm-hmm.
How did those experiences shape your understanding of compassion?
Well, it's funny because when I was at Agape, I wasn't even a practitioner yet. I was a performer.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, there's this ministry where you can go perform at convalescent homes. And I said, oh, yeah, I'll do that. And so then as I was continuing to take classes, then I was also starting to share some of my spiritual poetry. And I was also starting then to, move into kind of finding myself giving talks.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was also, bringing other talented people in, and seeing, people like getting up out of their wheelchairs, and people who were actually feeling their power.
Yep.
And so it just like that just made me want to do it more.
Of course.
Right.
Once you start seeing that your words have an actual impact on people.
Yeah.
I
and I want to be a beneficial presence. That's the main thing. Yeah.
Yes. So you said you were a performer. You meant in the performance of poetry, in the performance of public speaking. What kind of performance?
Screen Actors Guild.
Oh.
AFTRA, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, union carrying. Sometimes still get residuals. They may be only a few cents, but if they're playing overseas, I still get some money.
That's so cool. I would love to see those. Did you work with a team? Like you worked with other actresses or actors, or?
Oh yeah, if you're cast of something, you work with the cast. And then when I started writing scripts, then I would hire writers, and I would work with them, and I would direct them, and I would write. Sometimes I would write roles for myself and be able to work with other people, and that almost became like an addiction, that let me move on to the next thing. And people were giving me accolades for this thing, and I was moving on to the next project because it was that kind of addiction. Until I finally realized that I needed to be more present when I started getting more into my spirituality. Yeah.
I see. How does a minister balance spiritual leadership with personal spiritual growth? I mean, you see yourself still growing. How do you see yourself in your own person?
Because anytime you're a spiritual leader in a community, people will give you a reason to look at yourself, because anytime people are resisting their own growth, they will give you some drama. They give you an opportunity to look at yourself and say, okay, what do I need to release here? It never stops being an opportunity to grow.
Yes. I can totally see that.
Yeah.
And how can spiritual teachings address systemic or social challenges, right? As you know, St. Louis, even though it's a one city, but it's made out of dozens of communities, right? Each one with their own challenges and dividedness. So what do you think? How do you think, the spiritual teachings at CSL, a Center for Spiritual Living, can actually address the social challenges?
But it's just so tricky because to me, I normally do things like head on. But because there are so many people that are conservative in this area, it's like I have to like kind of, do an underlying message. So because they can't hear it head on. So it just requires a little bit more crafting. And since I'm a wordsmith and that's what I use, and then always let spirit lead.
Yes.
Because I could just be very blunt and they wouldn't want to hear what I have to say about some things. So I have to be creative, and I'm a creative being. So
You also have very distinct looks. At least that's what it looks like to me as a transplant from Italy. I can see how you were chosen also to be in theater, with your, look like a Native American chief. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. In fact, if my mom is watching, she will be immediately make a comment. Wow, she looks like a Native American chief. I want to know her.
Yeah, from the Blackfoot tribe.
Yes, yes, que bello. And I think that kind of diversity adds so much more depth and passion in the way that your speeches as the ministry resonate to people. Just like on Sunday we also had Reverend Tia, and she was also amazing. She absolutely had so much value, and with her words you can feel that her words were coming from the heart. We're not coming from here, we're coming straight from the heart. So tell me, what are the greatest gifts communities have given you?
I really appreciate when there are people in the community that want to support me. Like one of our congregants, Nan, is a retired nurse, and I said, we went to the doctor. They want to talk about this, and she said, "I want to come with you." And so like when people care about you and they want to, take care of you or want to support you and moving through whatever your challenges are, I find that to be really heartwarming. When people think about you, and not just about what you can do for them. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy. And it makes me feel like I'm cared for, and so 100%. That is understated as it could possibly be, because that is something that is really, really I'm grateful for.
Yeah. You can tell when you can receive all this beautiful gifts from the communities because it reminds you that you have touched them with your spirit. Not necessarily with your body. You haven't given them physical help, like bringing the groceries or whatever, or fixing their house, but you have touched them with your spirit. And it is so beautiful. My experience, I still get calls from some of my clients from other states that seen me and they still appreciate my work. So just a couple more questions. What are the most transformative daily practices from Science of Mind? Like specific from the principles of Dr. Ernest, what's his name? Holmes, exactly, yes.
Well, one part of your question, the answer is affirmations.
Yes, tell me about
it. Basically, when something seems like it's missing, and that's why you create an affirmation to state that it is, even if it appears not to be. From Ernest Holmes, there's so many things, but essentially it still comes down to God is, and I'm one with God. From there, everything's possible.
And what does affirmative prayer differ from traditional forms of prayer? What is affirmative prayer?
Affirmative prayer is accepting just that what I seek is available to me. Old school prayer is beseeching and thinking that God has deserted you and that you have to beg for it to give you what you need. And it's just not that energy that's going to be giving you anything, because you're already convinced more of what you don't have than what you are having and can have and will have. And so it's really a mindset of being available to your greater good.
Great. When you imagine the future of CSL or New Thought, what do you see?
CSL as this community, or CSL the global community?
Let's talk about the local community.
Whew.
Yeah. Because it's a
Well,
small congregation, but it's growing, and I will do my best to help.
yeah, it's really, I think, a process of being available at the heart level so that people can trust their hearts more than their heads.
Hmm.
And the more I can come from a heart level, and the more I can come from an intention for people to see themselves as spiritual beings and not just human beings,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
that I can support them in making that connection too. And the more they step into that, I think they'll be kinder and gentler to themselves and to me and to everybody else.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, I can feel that. How has your understanding of God evolved over the years? This is another big topic.
Oh, it's just like, the difference between God being out there somewhere and God
Uh-huh.
being in here somewhere,
Yes.
which, thank God happened early in my life.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And then I just keep getting reminded that I don't have to go anywhere but to turn within
Right.
for
It's
my
beautiful.
answers and for my support.
Yes. Amen. This is a great message that it reinforces what I already knew. And it's
Mm.
always wonderful to hear it from somebody like you.
Okay.
What final message would you offer to anyone seeking clarity, healing, or a deeper relationship with spirit?
I'd say to just breathe and to start with considering yourself to be more of a spirit than a human,
Mm-hmm.
and considering yourself to be available to a greater good than you may be experiencing, and considering yourself to be someone who is worthy of having a greater experience than you've been having, and maybe letting go of any ideas about not being enough because it's just not true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Wonderful, wonderful message. Dr. Hawkins, again, my mentor, says that everything arises spontaneously by virtue of divine grace.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all the work of art, all the beautiful music has been written when you get your ego aside and realize that everything arises spontaneously out of divine grace. Do you think that your life experience in general, when you stepped away from your ego, everything um, was so happened for a purpose? It was meant to be.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
And that's one of the things that A Course in Miracles helps us to understand. Um, because if you're edging God out, you're really up the creek. But when you let go and let God, it really puts you in a position to have greater insight and to be able to start that healing journey.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Great. Great, 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 great. Yes, it's beautiful and comforting to know that there is this infinite abundance that we can all tap into, and that transcend just like the transactional portion, the money transaction. Money is simply a medium of exchange to measure perceived value. So, well, as we bring this conversation, beautiful conversation, to a close, I want to take a moment to honor Reverend Celeste Frazier for the wisdom, clarity, and spiritual depth she has shared with us today. If you feel inspired, as I certainly do, I encourage you to stay connected with her work and her message. By the way, she is offering an incredible class coming up soon. It's called Spiritual Principles and Practices, available at the Center for Spiritual Living in Creve Coeur. This class will run on Thursdays from January 8th through March 12th, 2026, from 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., with a tuition of $300 and a payment plan available. You can also explore Reverend Celeste's writings, talks, podcasts, and upcoming events through her website at celestefrazier.com. And if you feel called to experience the teachings of the Center for Spiritual Living, you're warmly invited to attend their Sunday service here in St. Louis. Their service takes place every Sunday from 11 to 12 noon CST at Center for Spiritual Living, 12 875 Fifi Road, St. Louis, Missouri. You can also join the service live on their Facebook page if you prefer to participate online. For those who want to continue journeying with us, I invite you to like, subscribe, and stay connected through my YouTube channel, Yogaphora. Your presence, your engagement help us grow a community where conversations like this can flourish. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. May you carry forward something today that opens your heart, expands your awareness, and reminds you of your own sacred connection with Source. Until next time, be well, stay open, and keep walking your path with grace. Grazie mille. Thank you so much.
Thank you
I
for
so
having
much
me.
appreciate you.
Yes, yes, yes. Wow. That was a